Food Trucker School is now in session, episode 15. Where's the bass? What's up, Food Truckers? Pat Flynn here, your host. And Food Trucker School is here to help you take your food truck business to the next level. Whether you're just starting out or you've been doing this for a while, this is the show for you. Today, I'm so happy to welcome Shawna Dawson to the Food Trucker Podcast. Shawna plays a very active role in the LA food scene. She co-founded the LA Street Food Fest. She founded Artisanal LA, a really cool community event supporting artisanal food entrepreneurs. She also runs Sauce LA, a marketing and PR group for chefs, restaurants, and small businesses. She has a lot of wisdom to share with you. So sit back, get ready, and let's learn from Shawna Dawson. Shawna, thank you so much for coming on Food Trucker School with us today. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Now, you are so involved with the LA food scene. Why don't you tell the listeners out there all that you do for the LA food scene?
Sure. So, well, in the context of this phone call, you probably know me as the creator/curator of the LA Street Food Fest, which is going into its fifth year. Here in Los Angeles, we're actually having our fifth annual event coming up on June 28th at the Rose Bowl, which is exciting.
Awesome.
But separate of that, I also have another event, which I founded and still produce and curate, called Artisanal LA, which is going into its, also actually this will be its fifth year, which showcases and features specifically small food producers and artisan food makers, primarily those who are local and independent. And separate of the events front, I also do a lot of consulting. So I do marketing, PR, and branding consulting, specifically in the world of restaurants, chefs, and hospitality. So never a dull moment.
No, you got a lot going on. How did you get started with getting into the food scene here?
Well, you know, I'm a native Angelino. I really like to eat. So for a long time, I was just kind of the go-to of my friends of who to chat with if you were looking for a restaurant or something new and interesting in the food world in LA that you might not have come across yourself. And that kind of extended itself to a little blog that I had for some time, which was about all things LA definitely with a food bent to it. And I maintained my little blog until I had to abandon it to take on a position with Yelp. So I then worked with Yelp as a director of marketing and a community manager, and I was one of the people who launched and developed the Los Angeles market. So that's part of that evolution. When I left, I started the Street Food Fest, soon after Artisanal, and in the midst of all that, started consulting, and
Wow.
Fast forward 5 years, here we are.
Here we are. Wow, what an amazing story. Now, so you were there when the Koji truck just started and the food truck scene was just getting right off the foot. What was that like to see that evolve, and how do you feel about where it's at now?
Yeah, that's actually, it's funny you mention it because I was still with Yelp when Roy launched that truck. And I distinctly remember meeting him on one of his first nights out and saying, hey, we should do something with Yelp with you. But, you know, for me as an Angelino, separate of that, I grew up eating street food. You know, I grew up we could have a whole half an hour debate on whether or not it is technically the East Side or not. But for our purposes, I will refer to where I grew up as the East Side.
Okay.
Depending on where you place that, if it's which side of the river.
Right.
But I grew up in primarily Eagle Rock and Mount Washington, South Pass when I was a little bit older before I was on the West Side. And, you know, having grown up in Mount Washington and Eagle Rock, and obviously with, you know, the neighborhoods of Glassell Park and Highland Park, just at the foot of our foothill, I was no stranger to taco tables, taco stands, taco trucks, you know, my entire life. In fact, some of our neighbors had taco trucks, and that was their family business. They had a not so sexy name then. I hate to even repeat it these days, but you know, I think like most of us of my age group, they were often referred to as roach coaches, which is absolutely terrible on one hand, but kind of spoke to the fact that there was some level of authenticity in phenomenal food on the other.
Right.
Which is, again, like a huge conversation debate about how we place Latin food in this country, specifically in Los Angeles, that cheap somehow means good. But again, that's probably a conversation for another time. But I grew up, eating that way. So when Cookie Truck launched, when Roy, kind of hit this massive exodus of food truck fame, that was when the idea for the Street Food Fest was born, because I thought, wow, what an amazing time with him having all this critical media success, and then the grilled cheese truck, and at the time the buttermilk truck, and others coming onto the scene. I couldn't imagine a better time to position those trucks and their media presence in conjunction with the types of street vendors that I grew up with, and who people weren't necessarily talking about, who weren't media darlings. The types of taco stands and joints that you would not come across, unless you happen to live in Eagle Rock or Highland Park or Boyle Heights. So I thought, this was a great time to take advantage of some of that synergy and put all of those things into one place. And at the time when we did that, there was no idea that it would be met with the success or the positive reception that it was. We planned our first event very quickly in the span of about 6 weeks. It was promoted entirely, with grassroots methods. We didn't have a budget to do any kind of really big, bendy promotion or ads. And through the power of grassroots and through the power of Facebook, which at the time was still entirely viral before anyone over there decided that they needed to monetize for an IPO.
Right.
We were able to, plan for 5,000 attendees, and that was kind of like our high hopes. And frankly, the city officials who were working with the plan were, I think, kind of looking at us like, oh, you're so sweet, bless. 5,000 people downtown on a weekend. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really take us very seriously, but after the fact, they estimated at least 25,000 people had showed up trying to get into the event. And that was when we realized, oh, there's a there.
Yeah. Wow. That
and
is
it's
crazy.
about a lot more. It's about community, and it was about a lot more than just a food truck.
Yeah, I mean that's something we say here all the time. It's more than just about the food you're serving. It's the culture you're creating and meeting up with other trucks and just creating an amazing experience for people. It's more than just the food. So you've had you've had an incredible, huge influence on just the growth of this space in general. I mean, now it's almost mainstream. I mean, creating a food truck is something that's on the back of a lot of people's minds, and a lot of people we've seen are really interested in this. What tips would you have for somebody who's getting started with food trucks today? How do they succeed as a food truck? What are there's obviously 100 different things to do, but what are maybe the few important things that people need to get right in order to succeed? Yeah,
well, there are definitely 100 things, but at the top of that list of 100 things, first and foremost, I would say doing it for the right reason. We watched the bubble grow and then burst as everyone and their mother, from business people to locals to to people who are actually chefs, and then to corporations and brands. As everyone kind of saw this bandwagon to jump on that looked like there was a pot of gold attached to it. Everyone and their mother was like, oh, I'm going to start a food truck. And, I can't emphasize enough that there couldn't be a worse reason to do it. If you're going into this business to make money, don't do it. If you're going into the business because you are incredibly passionate about cooking, because you're a chef, because you perceive that there may be reduced barriers to entry to the market, as opposed to trying to jump directly into a brick and mortar because you want to test your concept with a consumer base, myriad reasons that are the right reason, absolutely do it. If you're not a chef, if you don't have a great food product or brand, and you don't really have the passion that it takes to work the way that a chef does, save yourself the trouble and look for another investment. That's I would start there. And I would say that for those who are those people, who are the ones who have the passion and a desire to really share their food with people, invest and take the time to really create a brand and a menu that's unique and diverse. And when I say diverse, I'm thinking of more of the brand, but, just really kind of knowing your place and your niche in the market. Because to think that, you absolutely need to do another Korean fusion taco place, maybe not so much.
There's like 3 of those like right by my house every Thursday.
Right? Exactly. I feel like everyone saw, what Roy did and thought, oh my gosh, that's success. And then the same thing happened with the grilled cheese truck. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go start a grilled cheese truck and it should have a logo and a look that looks just like theirs because that's what works.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what people want to see. I mean, frankly, we've had that. We were the very first to do this kind of event, and then everyone and their mother recreated it with the same perils. We quickly changed the model and fixed it. A lot of people haven't, which kind of blows my mind. But, I would say, imitation is certainly flattery, but, really just kind of doing something because it's what you do well and getting out there, that's it. If you've got something new and you brand it in a way that speaks to media, because again, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I always tell people, especially when I'm dealing with my artisanal vendors, that their brand is their product. I can't say that enough. If you don't lure someone in with the brand, you're never going to have an opportunity to get them to try the food.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have it sell itself. So really taking that time with the brand element, if you have a friend, if you, have a neighbor, someone in the family, or you yourself happen to have, a marketing background, really take the time to do that and set up an online presence, making sure, you have a website with the URL that links up correctly to your Instagram and your Facebook and your Twitter, so that you are in Pinterest at this point, so that you are really kind of utilizing all the channels that foodies do to take advantage of them. That would be it. So if I was going to say, the top 3 things, go into it for the right reasons, spend a lot of time working on your brand, and make sure your infrastructure is in place before you hit the road.
Love it. Fantastic advice. Thank you so much, Shawna. Now, a follow-up question to that is, there's one thing to sell your food and it's great to a customer one time, but how do you get those customers for your truck who just are completely in love with you, who will just share you like crazy, who will become what essentially is your raving fan? What are some things food trucks are doing specifically to create those raving fans?
Well, I would say, right off the bat, obviously having a product that is memorable and wonderful, and I would say that craveable, the great adjective.
That is great.
Craveable. So making sure that you have achieved that craveability, which if you are delivering a great product, you have. And then beyond that, it's about communicating a personal story. That is the beauty of coming up to a food truck. Unlike a restaurant where your chef is going to be hidden, behind a line somewhere that is very likely unseen by the consumer. When you have a food truck, you're right there. You can actually have a direct interface with most of your consumers. So making sure that there is that element of a personal touch goes a long way in any industry, but specifically in ours, where, creating that personal story and connection with all of your customers is huge. Especially when we do our events, I tell our guys to always, to treat everyone as if they're the next editor that's going to write an article about you that's going to blow you up.
Right.
It's really the attitude you have to have, because you never know when it is that person.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And for me, I really love when, I'm a big food truck patron here in San Diego. I love the small little touches. It's a small little details, just that one smile and thank you even, just I remember that. Or just something on their container that just is different than everybody else. Those are the things that help me remember.
Like if you're using your grandmother's recipe, communicate that. It needs to be on your menu. It should be in your packaging. It should be part of your messaging in your website and all of your online materials. Those little things go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of like, In-N-Out's secret menu, right? When you know that, you feel like you have something special, and then you're going to share that with other people. Oh, there's In-N-Out. You have your secrets. There's cool things like that. You don't need a secret menu, but stuff like that goes a long way to build that special sort of connection somebody has to your brand.
Most definitely.
Now, there's a couple other things I want to talk about before we finish up here. I mean, starting a food truck isn't the easiest thing in the world. And we've already talked about how there's hundreds of things to do. I think a big misconception people have, especially the people I've talked to who are getting in this industry, is just how much time out of the day it takes. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Maybe some of the biggest misconceptions people who are looking to get in this industry have that they should absolutely realize before they actually commit to it?
Well, that speaks again to kind of my point that if you haven't already worked in the kitchen, if you aren't already a chef, that isn't your background, this is a really tough thing to jump into, because if you don't recognize how tough, and I don't want to say tough in a way, because, if you love what you're doing, I would say, even like for me, I work my ass off, but is it work? No, I absolutely love everything I do. So I'm very blessed in that I work every day, but I never work. Mm-hmm. So, it's an important one to keep in mind for quality of life, because, if you enjoy that lifestyle, you're going to be fine with, starting your day doing business and then hitting a farmer's market, very likely, for whatever ingredients are going to inspire your menu or whatever's fresh, and dealing with your commissary, dealing with your marketing and your online, then actually having to do all of your prep for a day, and then having to be on the road all night. There is no downtime there. So being aware of that reality, that every waking hour practically is going to be spent in some capacity doing something related to this business, and not to mention the fact that you then have to duplicate the process everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. Because I think there can be a misconception there as well, where people think, oh, it's going to be easy in a food truck. I don't have to deal with all these types of permits. I don't have to deal with this or that. But in reality, you do multiple times over, because you need to become permitted in everywhere you go. Here in Los Angeles, West Hollywood is different from Los Angeles, which is different from Culver City, which is different from Beverly Hills, which is different from Pasadena. Everywhere you go, you're dealing with a whole new set of rules and bureaucracy, and you have to pay for it.
Right.
You have to pay for the privilege. So being aware of all of those things and having a business plan in place, and just being cognizant of the fact, again, that you need to be so passionate about this that you are willing to commit your life to doing it, is good to know going in. Otherwise, it can be really tough. I've seen a lot of people burn out fast because they had no idea what they're getting into.
Yeah, I think shadowing a truck or getting in the kitchen at least for a little bit just to see what it's like is huge. I mean, why wouldn't you do that if you're going to actually do this?
Well, and we didn't even talk about that. You know what it's like on the line in a kitchen in a restaurant.
Right.
Now, try doing that in a truck in the middle of the summer with a fryer.
And having to take orders and do everything else that is above the normal responsibilities.
I can tell you, I know I couldn't handle it. I couldn't hang. I've tried, I've been in, I've helped, and oh man, it's work.
It is, and that's why I love food truck owners. They're a special kind of entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And absolutely. I think that's a great way to end the show here, Shawna. Shawna, thank you again so much for your wisdom and sharing all of your information, and also just the influence you've had on the industry. If people want to get in contact with you or maybe just find out more about what you do, where would you point them to?
I would say start by finding us with the LA Street Food Fest. We are on Facebook and on Instagram, and our website. All three are lastreetfoodfest.com, and you can find us on Twitter at LAFoodFest.
Perfect. Thank you again, Shawna. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today here on the Food Trucker School podcast. If you'd like all the links that Shawna mentioned and everything that she's up to, just head on over to foodtrucker.com/15. That'll take you to the show notes where you can get all the links for this episode. Thank you again so much for joining us today. And seriously, we are here to help you. And if you wanted to help us really quick, just head on over to iTunes, look up Food Trucker, and give us an honest review. It helps us over here for producing these episodes. It helps everybody else out there who's looking for shows to listen to understand that this is a show that somebody should be listening to. And as always, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Keep on trucking, and we will see you in the next episode of the Food Trucker School podcast. Peace.